Hello and welcome to The Big Issue once again on OSRC television. I am Obi Chukwemeka Oti. The imbroglio between the federal government and Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, resulting in incessant strike actions in our tertiary institutions, has become a recurring decimal in our nascent democracy. ASUU is currently winding down its rollover of 2-month strike, totaling nearly 3 months of academic activities being grounded in our universities. This bout of strike commenced on February 14, 2022, over the alleged failure of the federal government to implement the agreements reached with the union in 2009. The federal government claimed it had so far paid 92 billion naira to cover earned allowances and revitalization funds to federal universities, which ASUU believes falls far short of their demands. The federal government had also agreed to inject 1.3 trillion naira for revitalization of public universities in 6 tranches, starting from 2013. It was to release 200 billion naira in 2013 and 220 billion naira each year for 5 consecutive years. It released the first tranche of 200 billion naira and failed to release the rest as agreed, citing paucity of funds. Some of the contending issues include the renegotiation of 2009 ASUU FGN agreement, improved welfare, revitalization of public universities, and replacement of universities' transparency and accountability solution UTAS with the integrated personnel payroll and information system IPPIS, among other demands. Is there any light at the end of the tunnel for the Nigerian student? Leading the conversation on the big issue today is a renowned scholar and an astute university administrator. He is currently sitting on the editorial board of over 25 national and international journals as editor, editor-in-chief, and advisory board. He is the current Vice Chancellor, Olusegun Agagu University of Science and Technology, Okitipupa, Professor Temi Ologurisha. Welcome to the big issue.
Good to have you here.
Good. All right, so let's go straight into the focus for today. Let's start off on this note. Professor, you've been in the academia longer than the genesis of ASUU strike in Nigeria. Nigerian public universities have been short 16 times in about 20 years, with the agitations left unresolved. Why the back and forth?
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I think the major problem with Nigeria higher education has to do with the need for restructuring. We need to restructure higher education in Nigeria in terms of funding, in terms of governance, in terms of a whole lot of things, in terms of professionalism. When I talk of restructuring, a situation where salaries of university professors are the same in about 50 universities in Nigeria or even 100 state and federal is not acceptable. There's a need for deregulation. Education too cannot just be free. There's no need for federal government to be paying salary of over 50 universities from Abuja using PPS, as if federal government does not have another job. What federal government needs to do first is to ensure that there's a level of financial autonomy, some level, where universities can generate their own money. Give them some level of, if they require 100% funding, give them 60% or 70%, and let them generate their remaining 30%, and let them determine the salary of their professors. Professor of medicine earn the same salary as professor of Yoruba studies. I'm sorry to use Yoruba studies for instance. That is not fair. Once somebody becomes a professor, he does not profess again. He continues to earn salary. So there's a need for restructuring. There's a complete. For instance, I was in Rivers State 2 weeks ago. The vice chancellor of the state university cannot even employ or take a professor on sabbatical leave without going to Governor Wike to take permission, because it is the state government, they have their state IPPS. They pay the salary of professor in that university. That is not acceptable. Universities have been integrated as part of the civil service, and you cannot run a world-class university using that approach. So university needs some level of autonomy, financially, and in terms of governance. So a VC of the State College of the State University in Rivers State, we have to go cap in hand, begging Governor Wike before he can employ his staff. That is not acceptable. That is the truth. And the same thing with federal government. A federal university cannot take somebody on a sabbatical using the IPPS. Federal government has no business paying salary of more than 20,000 lecturers from Abuja. It's ridiculous. So unless there's a restructuring, even if federal government gives, no amount of money will be enough. Let me just tell you, that's the secret. They will collect this money, suspend strike. Watch out for the language of Asuu. They always say, we suspend strike. They don't call us strike. That means when the money is exhausted, they bring back the strike. So it's a cycle, because the financial is wrong. Federal government cannot continue to be in charge of everything, as if universities don't have initiatives. So we need to look at what is the acceptable norm in other climes where things are working. I've worked in the American university system for about 5 years. In fact, the so-called federal system of government we are running, there's no federal universities in America. I say it now, there's no federal university in the US. So most universities are either state or private. But what federal government does is that they give grants to selected universities. They give grants like money. They just select some universities, they call them land grant universities. They are mostly into agriculture and some other areas. So federal government gives only grants. So there's no federal university in America. So we need to really know, what are we following? Where must higher education be centralized? As if we are running a primary school, we are not giving room for competition. Our universities are not competitive because they are centrally controlled. They are not able to attract the best hand. The best brain are not in the system. They have gone. We are not able to attract students. It is very difficult to get foreign students, foreign staff, foreign professors in our universities. Most of the universities are run by local professors, local personnel, sometimes from the local government, where the universities are located. Our universities have been reduced to local institutions. They are not competitive. That is the truth. Because in terms of governance, you cannot even employ somebody without going to Abuja to go and beg for them to, it robs on the autonomy of the university. And so university cannot be run like civil service. And that is the major problem. Federal government, let them give money. I can tell you, in another 1 year, there will be another strike.
Okay. According to data, Minister of Labor and Employment, Chris Ngige, was quoted saying that he had successfully conciliated 1,683 industrial disputes since assumption of office in 2015, and had been taking extra measures beyond his statutory responsibilities to forestall strike actions. Do you agree with this assertion?
Well, he has rights to his opinion. I don't have the capacity to actually look at what he's saying. We need to look at the cases. So any minister can come to the here to say something. So it's not my responsibility to say what he has said is correct or not. But what I know is that this strike is getting too long, and there's a need for intervention. Maybe the issue at stake is beyond him. He needs to meet with his principal and to see how this matter can be resolved. Yes.
Okay, the minister also insists that the role of the Ministry of Labor is to conciliate disputes and does not include the implementation of agreements reached with parties. What is the import of this on ASUU's struggle?
Yes, let me say something. Federal government owns the federal universities. That's the truth. So, and who is the visitor to the university? Is the president of the federation. So, the Asuu agreement is beyond the Minister of Labor. That is the truth. And this agreement has been overdue, was signed in 2009. So we're saying that the whole agreement in holistic needs to be overhauled. And what the agreement says is that it should be overhauled every five years or thereabout. And between 2009, although I'm not speaking for ASU, but I'm speaking as an administrator who is an ASU man, who understands the workings of the university. So if an agreement is due since 2014 or thereabout, and what the government has been having with ASU is a memorandum of understanding to keep peace, I think it has got to a tipping point. For instance, let me tell you, a professor in Nigeria earns less than $1,000. That's the truth. That is the truth. So how do you attract anybody? So government needs is beyond federal government set up the negotiating team. So we need to, it's beyond the minister. Minister did not set it up. So it cannot take, it can only speak when it has to speak. I think government may need to really, the Minister of Education, the president of the country, we need to sit down and see how the matter can be resolved. So it's beyond Ngige himself. That's the truth. Because the agreement only has life when the president assents to it. That's the truth.
Okay, if you say it's beyond him and he's a part of the federal government, for instance, the federal government had on March 7, Monday, inaugurated a 7-man committee charged with the responsibility of renegotiating this 2009 agreement reached with Academic Staff Union of Universities and other university-based staff unions. But the Minister of Labor has said that he has passed the buck on ASU, saying his ministry has made every conciliatory moves necessary to resolve this problem. But the lecturers have failed to shift ground. You have failed to shift ground. ASU has likewise accused the federal government of insincerity, saying rather than addressing the core of the issues, the government is addressing platitudes. Are you not worried that the interest of the Nigerian students is no longer protected with this lingering strike?
ASU is ready to go back to class or classes to teach, but like they have said, federal government needs to meet some minimum condition. If you get to our universities, you'll be sorry. I'm telling you, the facilities are not there. Our universities are local institutions. So it's not about bringing students in. That's the truth. In fact, it's very unfortunate that the masses, every time we just feel that universities should be open, we should just open the door, producing what kind of graduates? Graduates that have no skill, graduates that they carry only useless papers around. That is not what ASU wants. ASU is the only organization that has integrity in terms of protecting the integrity of the certificate we issue. That's the truth. When this crisis came up some years ago, they gave government some solution. And part of the solution was this ETF, Education Task Fund, which has now metamorphosed into Tertiary Education Trust Fund. But you can see what is happening. The third fund now, as my hijacked, is used for other purpose. So like I've said, there's a minimum condition, which as well as stipulated. I think government needs to go beyond the level. ASU is reasonable. A large number of ASU officials, they are serving in different levels of government of this present APC-led government. So I'm very sure that ASU will listen to them if they're able to shift ground, maybe positively towards ASU direction. Like I've said, the IPPS, there are a lot of issues. And like I've said, ASU came out with their alternative, what they call UTAS. So let's try that, whether it will work. That's the truth, because there are a lot of unresolved issues. IBPS was made for civil servants. So the template is quite different for academics, for universities. University is a different sector altogether. But when we begin to collapse university as if we treat them like civil service, then we have problems. And that is what ASU is saying.
All right, let's move on. Do you think ASUU's demands are outlandish? Because one of your members on this program actually opined that ASUU's demands are not realistic and that the federal government only signed the MOU because they wanted you to return to work back then. What's your take on this?
I'm not, I won't say ASU demands are not realistic. For instance, like I've said, in a country where you want to attract the best hands, you are investing so much in education, the salary of a professor, for God's sake, is less than $1,000. And they are saying that we want this salary to be reviewed. They've been earning this salary in the last 15 years. What is, or more than 10 years? So I'm not comfortable when somebody now say the demand is unreasonable. You have IPPS, there are issues. There are professors that, so even some vice chancellors complain that some are even paid like graduate assistant. There are issues with IPPS. And they're saying, ASU is coming out with alternative. Why don't we give ASU a trial? Whether it will work. If it doesn't work, government can throw it away. That's the truth. So it shouldn't be as if government is too rigid. Let's be flexible and try. With ASU, government cannot meet all ASU conditions. I must say it at this forum.
Okay.
Federal government cannot meet all conditions of ASU.
Especially
so they will look
considering the fact that they have said due to paucity of funds in the country.
Exactly. But I think federal government needs to critically look at the issue of salary. Very, very important. The salary is just not attractive. That is true. It's not attractive. It's not attractive.
Okay, so if you're saying you're emphasizing a lot about salary, then perhaps some persons who have said that ASU is being selfish. That's more about yourself, about your pockets, rather than the well-being of the tertiary institutions in Nigeria.
The 2009 agreement, it covers a whole lot of issues. But I just feel, maybe for me as an administrator, I think the critical area which I feel touches on ASU, as for me as an administrator, is more on the salary. ASU may have some other demands. Like, I'm not ASU spokesperson, but I'm familiar with some of the demands. Even the research facilities, like I've said, the ability of a vice chancellor. I'm a vice chancellor of a university. My governor gave me autonomy. I don't need to go to Alagbaka to meet the governor that I want to bring a sabbatical staff in the Department of Applied Geophysics. The governor has a lot of other things to do. So why does a vice chancellor need to go to Abuja or go and meet his state governor, like in River State, to get the governor's approval before he gets somebody on sabbatical? What kind of university are we running?
Okay, that's also one of the issues that the federal government has always come up with. The fact that when you're on sabbatical, you're getting paid where you are, and then your university is also still paying you your salaries.
That is the philosophy behind sabbatical. Universities all over the world, they have their peculiarities. When a professor works in the university where he works for 6 years, he's entitled to what they call sabbatical, like Sabbath day. You want to go and rest for 1 year. At that point, he goes to another university to get fresh ideas. Or he has a project he needs to do. Then interact with other colleagues anywhere in the world, how to do it better. It's not a year you go and sit and rest in your house and sleep. No, while your salary is still being paid, it's part of the condition of service. That is what we inherit from the British system, even the American system too. So that is the way it is run. It's part of the condition of service of universities all over the world, because universities are universal.
Okay, so it's not peculiar to Nigeria alone.
It's not peculiar to Nigeria.
All right, you are the arms of affairs at a state-owned university, like you mentioned. There are critics of ASU, particularly the state branches, have been accused of joining the ASU strike only to solidarize with the national body. According to them, state universities have no substantial benefits from the agitations. For instance, only yesterday, already, Kaduna State University has asked their lecturers and students to resume academic activities.
Well, it's a very dicey thing. when the federal government negotiates with ASU, let me say it at this forum, that ASU is a union which is a combination of university lecturers in public, in federal and state universities. It's a union of lecturers in public universities, whether federal or state. And I think part of the agreement is that they will always negotiate centrally. And they've always been doing that with federal government. And when federal government signs agreement with that union, federal government implements immediately with federal universities. The state branches, the state university will now go back to their various states and now begin another round of negotiation with their governors, with their principal, with their governors. And some governor will say, yes, this 100% salary federal government approved, we have money, and we approve, so that the standard remains the same. Some states, governors will say, no, I can only pay 80% or 70% or 95%. That is the way it works. And so, because salary of university professors in public universities are centrally negotiated, and the union are also the same. So that is the spirit under which the state universities join federal. So it's not left for the proprietors. It is only the proprietors of state universities that can determine whether, oh, we don't want you to join federal, the central. So these are a matter of union and policy between the government, the proprietors of state universities, and their university workers.
But don't you think this is an injustice to taxpayers who have actually paid their taxes in their various states and their children are locked out of school?
Yeah, I think the stakeholders may need to maybe have another stakeholders meeting to look at the fallout of what happens, to look at the memorandum of understanding between the state governor, the proprietors of state universities, and the lecturers, and even the students. What should be the terms of reference? But for now, that is what is in operation. I don't want to say yes or no, but I think the matter may need to be revisited. Yeah.
All right, the instability in our higher institutions has also caused an image problem for the nation. In some years, back in the years, like you mentioned earlier, Nigerian universities could boast of an array of international students. But these days, it's no longer the same. Rather, Nigerians are the ones migrating to foreign universities to get quality education. Has these strike actions in Nigerian university mended the problems or worsened it?
Yeah, the strike is not good for us. It's not creating a good image for Nigeria, and it's making it difficult for Nigerian universities to attract students, because there's no point as a foreign student you are paying in dollars. They're not going to pay in naira. You pay in dollars, and you come over here, and instead of 4 years, you spend 6 years, 7 years because of local issues. The story will not be good. The foreign student will go back and tell it different stories. That's the truth. So I think the strike is not good for our education. It's not making our educational system to be competitive. It's robbing on the integrity in terms of quality and in terms of access. We're not getting foreign students. We're not even saying that we should get students from UK or from America. Nigerian universities should be able to attract students from Ghana, from Togo, from Cameroon. What is happening now is that Nigerians are drifting in large number to Lome, to Togo, to Ghana, those universities that are very, very substandard, even to Nigerian ones. So the strike is giving us a bad image. So, but I feel that we should address what is causing strike. Like I've said, the university system needs to be restructured in terms of governance, in terms of autonomy, financial autonomy. They've given ASUU political autonomy in terms of the ability of council to appoint vice chancellors. But they should grant some level of financial autonomy, especially to federal universities, for them to charge a little fee, however small, and that will help government, because the whole load right now is on top of federal government. And no government cannot provide everything. Let parents, let them pay some stipends, however small, whether 50,000 or whatever, they must pay.
Are you saying that they're not paying at the moment?
There are no federal university, there's no tuition fees. There are other fees like medical, ICT, library. These are small charges. There are no tuition fees in federal universities, only in state universities.
Okay, and this to you, this tuition fee should be paid to the school, not the federal government.
Exactly. And that is why federal government needs to look at what does it take to run a university per child, and then multiply by the number of students in a university. You have an average cost of what it takes to run to provide university education in a particular university. And federal government can now say, oh, we are giving you permission to charge 50,000, but instead of 100% financial support we give you, henceforth, now that you charge 50%, 50,000, we'll give you 70 or 80% and use the 50% you charge to augment. And the load will be on federal government. And federal government can have time to attend to other issues.
But don't you think that that would also make it more difficult, as in increase and aggravate the issue of illiteracy amongst us as a people?
I don't think so. If you look at what is happening now, state universities, for instance, they charge fees, and they are running in Osrc State University.
We know also that the common man, many are not able to afford these fees being charged by state and private universities.
The truth is this: university education is not for everybody. I don't know why we just feel that everybody must go to the university. That's the truth. University education is not for everybody. That's the truth. Primary up to secondary school, they are free in all developed countries of the world. In America, you don't pay any fees in primary schools and secondary schools. But when you are going to university, you have to pay some money. In America, they have what they call loan schemes, what they call federal aid. They give an undergraduate student 5,000 free. If you want to get more than 5,000, you have to take a loan, which you have to pay back. And the American security system is different from ours. In America, it's just like a student in the university. You have a matric number. So there's a social security number. Anywhere you work, you are owing the federal government such amount of money. And they tell you, how do you want to repay the loan? So, and the loans are not collateralized. They're in trillions, and they are revolving for generations and generations of Americans who are residents or citizens. So, but here, we don't have such schemes. So, because the social security system is not there, there are no strong institutions to enforce such things. I'm aware in the past, federal government tried some loans board, but it never worked because there was no institutional framework, legal framework to make it work. And maybe with the national NIM, this identity card, something, whether it will work. But these are the challenges. In America, there's a loan scheme where students can take loan and go to school. And they also, federal government also gives something like similar to our own bursary. That one is minimum of 5,000 students for undergraduates. It's just a free money to them, to help them to augment their fees, their whatever upkeep. Yeah. So we don't have such program here. So maybe the federal government may need to look at that kind of program. But like I've said, university education is not for everybody.
Okay. All right. What do you foresee happening as the rollover given by Asuu winds down? Can we handle another rollover of the strike? These students have been at home for almost 3 months at the moment.
Yeah, well, let's just keep praying that things will work out, and the negotiating team and ASUU, they'll be able to reach a midpoint, and federal government, who is the final arbiter, the president. I know during the Goodluck Jonathan era, there was a stalemate to the point that Asuu was invited to the villa to meet with Goodluck, President Goodluck. And it was President Goodluck that eventually broke up peace. So maybe it will get to that point, because President Buhari is our father. He's a father to everybody. So I'm sure he's watching what is happening. So it will get to a point, he will call everybody to order. And I'm sure sanity will eventually return to the universities. And we can start teaching and doing our research.
Revered University Administrator and Vice Chancellor Olusegun Agagu University of Science and Technology, Okitipupa, Professor Temi Ologunorisha. Thank you for sharing your perspectives with me on the big issue.
Thank you so much for having you around.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go take the news update. I will return with the panelists to open up the conversation. Do join us again.